Welcome to the Smartphone Awards. So there were a ton of smartphones that have come out in 2018, from January and CES, straight all the way through all the launches and events till December now. And all these phones have different strengths, different weaknesses, different goals, different designs, different things they do well and not as well. They're all similar in some ways, but they're all different. So naturally, at the end of the year, we gotta break it all down and reward the very best of them. So there will be a bunch of categories, and for each category, there will be an overall winner. And then there will be, if there's a worthy one, a second place, sort of a runner-up. And if there's some more good stuff, there's an honorable mention. So without any further ado, let's get started. First category is Best Big Smartphone. So nowadays, most smartphones are already pretty big, right? They've gotten bigger year after year. All these phones in 2018 are way bigger than the phones from 2015. But this award goes to the one that takes the best advantage of all that extra space, that makes the most use of being big, both with hardware and software. And the winner for Best Big Smartphone of 2018 goes to Samsung Galaxy Note 9. And this one's honestly a no-brainer. If you gotta have a big phone, the Note 9 has absolutely one of the best big phone feature sets you can possibly get. It's the absolute best display in any phone, a 6-inch AMOLED, and the huge body holds a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. It keeps the headphone jack, it has expandable storage, it has dual cameras, there's no notch, and it has room for a stylus that doubles as a remote control. But it's not just about having big hardware. What really won it over for the Note is having all this software that takes advantage of it all the S Pen features, the multi-window support. This phone is a power user's default. It's the big phone of the year, no doubt. And then the runner-up for Best Big Phone of the Year is gonna go to Huawei Mate 20 Pro. This was the last phone I reviewed this year, kind of snuck in at the buzzer, but they killed it. It's not quite as big as the Note 9, but it still has a 6.4-inch AMOLED. It has a 4,200 milliamp hour battery, and it has triple cameras instead of the usual one or two, all at different focal lengths. There's no pen, which is actually fine for most people, but there's also no headphone jack, and it does have a notch, but still, this is one of the most complete big phones of the year, both in hardware features and software. All right, so the next up category is Best Small Smartphone, the best compact phone of the year. You see, small smartphones are kind of a rare breed nowadays. All throughout everyone's lineup, phones have just gotten bigger across the board, but you can still do great things in compact packages. Not as compact as phones used to be a couple years ago, but still, there are some great small phones out there. Also, by the way, I think this is the closest contested category. Some really good ones here. But the winner for Best Small Smartphone in 2018 is gonna go to iPhone XS. This one's got a 5.8-inch display. Like I said, not a super small phone, but to win this award, you have to do everything in the small phone that the big phone does. And iPhone XS truly does pretty much everything the iPhone XS Max does, just with a smaller display and smaller battery. There's basically no other drawbacks. Obviously, it's one of the fastest chips with that A12. It has the same dual cameras as the bigger phone, same RAM, and you know what you're getting with iOS. There's not many people out there regretting buying this phone. By the way, I'm gonna leave my list of all the reviews of the phones I talk about down below, so spoiler alert, that's kind of like a winners section, but that will be below. Anyway, a very close second place, a runner-up to Best Compact Smartphone of 2018 is gonna go to the Pixel 3, 5.5-inch display. So it's even smaller, and some might even say the Pixel 3 is an even more appealing buy than the bigger brother, the Pixel 3 XL. The only thing you're losing out on here is you have a smaller display and a smaller battery, but you even keep the stereo front-facing speakers and the dual front-facing cameras. And then runner-up right behind that is gonna go to Samsung Galaxy S9, back to a 5.8-inch display. And this thing has a lot going for it already. Great design, we all love that already. 3,000 milliamp hour battery. The only points you gotta dock for it are having one less camera than the Galaxy S9 Plus, and for having a little bit less RAM. But odds of you noticing those things are both pretty small. Okay, next up, best camera. So for some people, like me, having a great camera is super important in a smartphone. If you take a lot of photos and videos, it's just encouraging to know that you'll be able to capture the moment in as high of a quality as possible. I happen to like to take a lot of photos on my smartphone, so this is a category that I've spent a lot of time analyzing. And it's come out crystal clear. This is probably no surprise if you've watched the videos, but the winner for the best camera in a smartphone in 2018 is gonna go to the Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL. There is one camera in this phone, and the amount of software magic Google's done with this one is nothing short of amazing. There were, of course, plenty of other good phone cameras this year, but Google's HDR Plus and software magic plus Night Sight and all the incredible shots I've gotten with it put it clear and far ahead as the favorite camera ever in any smartphone. It's so good. In second place though, I have a camera that does slightly lesser photos, but that I'd say does much better video and audio, and that is the iPhone XS. iPhones have been sort of the king of video in smartphones for a little while now, and the 2018 iPhone is no exception to that rule. If you're trying to do a lot of video on your smartphone, you should get the iPhone. And I'm gonna give my honorable mention for cameras to the Huawei Mate 20 Pro for an excellent use of 3 cameras, obviously with 3 unique different focal lengths. I really like the super wide angle camera, especially for a lot of things. Now, of course, LG and others also did the whole triple camera thing, but this one happens to be the best quality of those 3 cameras. All right, next award, best battery life. And this is an important one for most people because I feel like a big complaint a lot of people have about their current smartphone is it just doesn't last long enough. So it's good to see some smartphones focusing on not getting super, super thin, but actually giving you a long-lasting battery life. Plus, you'll get extra points in this category for things like fast charging and wireless charging. And the winner, sneaking in at the end of the year for best battery life I've had actually ever in a phone, but of course of 2018, is the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. This one, I don't wanna say it shocked me because I knew it would be good. I just didn't know it would be this good. So it's a 4,200 milliamp hour battery, 6.4-inch display, but the aggressive memory management combined with the actively changing resolution and fast charging and wireless charging, all of this combined meant I literally never think about battery when using this phone. I could be using it for 6 straight hours in a day and end the day with 40% left or something ridiculous. It's really impressive what they've done with this phone. And all of that in a phone that's not even that thick. Kind of sorcery. Well done, Huawei. Runner-up for best battery, iPhone XR. Turns out combining the best SoC in any phone with the Apple A12 with a particularly low resolution is a recipe for a super long-lasting battery life. This is the longest-lasting iPhone I've ever tested, and it happens to be a bunch of colors and other sweet stuff too, but XR, very good battery. And then honorable mention will go to Red Hydrogen 1. This phone, it is obviously pretty thick, but it's packing a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, making it officially the biggest battery cell I've ever held in my pocket, or at least in a smartphone anyway. It does have pretty fast charging, doesn't have wireless charging, but it just lasts for an eternity on battery, so that's a good sign. Okay, next up, the Design Award. And this is an interesting one because for a lot of the year we got these complaints of every phone kind of looks the same. Are we at peak smartphone? And this is kind of when they're all doing glass backs, dual cameras, and a notch, like every single phone. But I found that the most interesting looking, most innovative designed looking phones this year came from a lot of boutique manufacturers trying to avoid the notch. So they knew that if they could say they made a totally bezel-less phone with no notch before Apple, then you'd have a big hit on your hands. And that spawned this whole genre of these crazy looking phones that were trying their best to be bezel-less, but then put the front-facing camera and the earpiece and all those sensors behind the screen or in some other places. It was really interesting to see. Anyway, the point I'm getting at, the design of the year for 2018 is gonna go to the Oppo Find 10. This was, I mean, what a head turner of a phone this year. They decided to go with a full-on motorized slider that holds the front-facing camera and IR sensors and full facial recognition system. It pops up every time you unlock the phone. And I don't think anyone can really speak to the long-term durability of a system like this yet, but the result is definitely a really fascinatingly beautiful phone that could totally end up in a museum in a few years. Also, there's a pretty good chance in the future we're gonna laugh at what we had to do to get these bezel-less designs back in 2018. But I'm gonna give honorable mentions to the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3, also a slider, and the NEX S, which was just the single pop-up camera. Okay, next category, best budget phone in 2018. This is an important one this year, because if you haven't noticed, pretty much every phone that came out over this calendar year of 2018 has been more expensive at launch than the one that came before it. I used to say it often, good phones are getting cheap, and cheap phones are getting good. Now, half of that is still true, but basically a great budget phone is becoming more and more rare, but they do still exist. So the winner for best budget phone of 2018 goes to, you guessed it, the Xiaomi Pocophone F1. This thing turned a lot of heads when it came out. It's not available everywhere still, and it's not the only good phone in this price range, but it just got so much hype, and then it does a lot of things well. Snapdragon 845, 6 gigs of RAM, 4,000 milliamp hour battery. and it's pretty well built, and it's around 300 bucks, give or take, with a bit of shipping. But even knowing numbers don't mean everything. Like, this phone performed pretty well. The skin wasn't too overwhelming, but you could just flash another ROM on it anyway. And on top of that, it went and took down the iPhone X in our blind camera test, so it's just got a lot going for it. You guys already know I'm so busy with flagships, I don't get to spend a lot of time with budget phones unless they really pop up on my radar, but this one really earned its time in my pocket, and I hope we see more phones like it next year. I'm gonna do honorable mentions in this category as well, and that would be for the Nokia 7 and the Honor 8X. Get it? Honor? I had to. All right, next up is the award I hate to have to give, but I have to give it. It's the bust, the biggest bust of 2018. We all have disappointments, okay, I get it. Like, there's mistakes get made. Sometimes 2 or 3 or 8 or 9 things go wrong, or maybe it just didn't live up to the hype, or you just didn't see something going the way it did. You can probably already tell what I'm getting at. No doubt the bust of the year for smartphones in 2018 was the Red Hydrogen 1. It was so frustrating because I wanted this phone to be so good. The whole video, if you watch it, it's just letdown after letdown, which is only so bad because I love so many other Red products and what they do as a company. But that being said, I'm still crossing my fingers for those modules, or Hydrogen 2, whichever comes first. But that's all coming in the future next year. This was the bust of 2018. All right, next up, the Most Improved Award. This goes to the phone that just improved the most year over year. Now, for as much as phones got more expensive over the last year, not a lot of them got significantly better to warrant that difference in price. Like, you know, the new iPhone looks like the old iPhone, the new Samsung looks like the old Samsung. That's part of the whole TikTok design strategy, but you have to reward the ones that really take a big leap forward. So the winner for Most Improved Smartphone of 2018 goes to Razer Phone 2. And they earned this award in a pretty new gaming phone category by basically attacking all the things that were weak about the first Razer phone and keeping all the good stuff. So they sort of repositioned it from a hardcore gaming phone to a flagship that happened to be great at media and gaming. So they added a glass back for wireless charging. They dropped in a glowing RGB logo. The cameras are improved. They kept the front-facing speakers. They kept the awesome 120 Hz display, but made it brighter, and then made the whole thing water resistant. Like last year, I wouldn't have necessarily recommended the first Razer phone to most people, but this one is much more complete, much more daily drivable. It's kind of like going from a prototype car to a full finished production version with all the trims. Like, it's much better. So this is, it's always sort of had the specs, it's just much more daily drivable now. So then last but not least, the biggest award of the night, literally, it's the MVP, the smartphone of the year. You can see it as the best phone, the most complete phone, the most impactful phone. Either way, there's only one voter, and that's me. So the winner of the MVP, the smartphone of the year for 2018, goes to the OnePlus 6T. Now this one's truly deserved, but if you scroll back up through the awards, it's not really the best at anything. Actually, it's arguably the fastest Android phone, but there's no award for that. But it does pretty much everything very well, and then makes a couple sacrifices in the right place to bring the price way down. So in a world where phones are approaching $900, $1,000, $1,100, the OnePlus 6T, this phone brings a lot of flagship performance and kind of flagship design too, down to literally half the price. It's hard to go wrong. And now that this is also in stores too, this is a phone that I'm recommending to a lot of people, and they're enjoying it too. Now, it's gonna be a tough act for them to follow next year, but we kind of always see it coming because we see the phone they release early in the year, then a couple months later, there's the T version that's way better. But I gotta say, they've done a great job with the 6T this year. So then, my runner-up for the MVP is gonna be the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. This is what you might call the most complete phone of the year. Not a lot of phones make it feel like you're getting more than you paid for, especially at $1,000. But if you want something that checks every box, Note 9 checks every box. It's basically the only flagship left with no notch, with a headphone jack, with a stylus built in, and then with that incredible display, with a variable aperture camera, and with all around high-end specs. It's checking every box. And then my MVP honorable mention will go to the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. Still not available in the US, and still not the best reputation of a company in the US either, but this phone did a lot of things right. So I'm talking best battery life that I've ever used in a smartphone, which is really impressive. You get the triple cameras of different focal lengths, so again, high quality, very versatile. You got your colored power button, and a great design and great overall performance. Not a whole lot not to like. Easily my favorite Huawei phone of all time, and one of the best devices to come out in 2018. So there you have it. It's the Smartphone Awards of 2018. Like I said earlier, there was a little bit of a sentiment that we are sort of all getting the same smartphone over and over. But really, when you look at it, there has never been a better selection. There's something for everyone, genuinely. Like whether you're into smartphone photography or video, or you're working on a budget, or you need a compact phone, or you're really into something that'll last you all day with a big battery. Even phones that aren't like winning awards that are on this table, if you brought this lineup of phones to 6 years ago, these would all be incredible choices. So it's kind of a good time to be alive. So thank you for watching this annual awards show. It's been a pleasure to host for 2018. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.